Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the My Football Writer YouTube channel. It's Freddie Humphrey Wakefield here. Bit of a different video from what we've been doing as of late. We've only really been doing the podcast. My apologies, but we're back on it with a match preview. Norwich City this Saturday, going up to the Britannia Stadium to play familiar opponents in Stoke City. They've played them many a time, not only in the Championship but the Premier League as well. Always seem to be in the same division, these two clubs, or at least in recent years anyway, since both sort of misfortune ever since their relegations from the Premier League in their respective seasons. But it's going to be a very tough game. This Stoke City currently sat, I believe it's third or second even in the Championship. I think it is actually second, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. They've had a fantastic start under Mark Robins this season since he took over. I believe it was midway through the season prior to this one. 4 wins and 2 losses at the Britannia Stadium. Believe they've lost once and they've won the other 2. They've had a really strong start to the Championship. A team who many didn't really expect to be bang up there. They've not made really any real statement signings, really. I think the main one you sort of look at is Sobra Thomas over the summer, who has had a really good start to life there. Excuse me, I've currently got a cold, so you're going to have to bear with a bit of a fair bit of nose sniffling and a bit of nose wiping here. You know, now it's the slightly colder months. We're nearly in October. Surprise, surprise, people are getting colds, but you may just have to put up with it for this video. So my apologies in advance. It may not look very nice, but I have to put up with it. And yeah, but back to the matter at hand, and that is the game. Norwich away from home have been excellent this season. They've played 4 games in all competitions. They've won 3 and drawn 1. And even that draw against Coventry, albeit they were far from their best, they only just really were pegged back to get a point. Well, I say pegged back, but in terms of scoreline they were. But in terms of the performance, they were second best in nearly everything they did, but still unbeaten away from home. And this is a very tough test for them in terms of that away record, and are they going to keep it up? And even with the injuries they've had, Liam Manning completed his press conference before this game about an hour ago from when I'm recording this video, and just more bad injury news. Papa Diallo is now going to be out, he's going to be out for 3 to 4 months with a quad injury that seems as if it requires surgery. Of course, was substituted against Wrexham around the 75th minute at the weekend just gone, but that didn't seem like it was really injury related. Manning said they always look at in-house injuries and see what they can do, but 3 to 4 months now without Papa Diallo, who has had a mixed start in his Norwich career, did superbly in those matches against Watford and Portsmouth in August, but hasn't really hit the heights that maybe were not exactly expected of him, but maybe that people instantly thought he could have reached. But no, Norwich will be without Papa Diallo for the next 3 to 4 months. It looks as if Lucien Mahovo is a possibility for the game. He's been back in training. Of course, wasn't involved at the weekend, but he's back in training. He could well end up in the team because Norwich don't have a left back currently. Ben Cresceni is still out for, believe it's another 5 to 6 weeks. And then you have Jeffrey Schlupp, who's out for another couple of weeks as well. And Norwich, they relied on Jose Cordoba against Wrexham, and by all reports, it didn't go very well whatsoever. So do Norwich opt for a youth academy left back in that position, or do they use what they've already got again, or do they do maybe what they did under Johannes Oftorap, and do they use one of their right backs as a left back? But I'll get into my predicted 11 in a minute about what I think Norwich will go with after the Wrexham game. I didn't. Well, the last podcast on the channel, you see, it was just Will and Jack, but those two and Henry and Matthew, who weren't in that podcast, they did all watch the game. I didn't. I don't get the opportunity to watch every single Norwich game as I do work related to football on a Saturday, so I don't really get the insight and knowledge that they do from all watching the game. So if you want to know really more thoughts from us about the Wrexham game and how it sort of went down, I do encourage you to watch the last podcast on the channel. Will and Jack made some great points about the game and the concerns that they've got over this Norwich team. There will be a Nodge spotlight coming soon as well about the 5 things we believe are Norwich City's biggest concerns at the moment. So do keep your eyes out for that. But going back to the match preview, again, as I mentioned earlier, very hard test. Even if Norwich had their best team available to them, this would still be very tough. Mark Robins, of course, renowned for really good football that he played with Coventry City, ended up getting them in the playoffs and achieving really great things after he helped them get promoted from League One. Played some great stuff. And, excuse me, as Stoke City this season have been playing some really good stuff, albeit they've not got the biggest squad. They've got a fair few youngsters who they named on the bench in their last game against QPR, which they lost. But they've got some good talent, evidently, and they are performing better than what a lot of people would have expected. Again, excuse me for the sniffling and the nose wiping. It doesn't look very pleasant, but no, we'll keep moving on. But no, going back onto the main point and back to Stoke City, they have got talent there. I've already mentioned Sobra Thomas. I believe their winger, I can never remember his full name. I think it's Bae Jun, and I can't. I think there may be a bit more to that, but he's a talented player. I believe he plays right wing. He's a very talented player. He's been sort of one of Stoke's main men, especially last season. A very, very good player. So Norwich will have to be careful of that. Of course, they really struggled down their right-hand side against Coventry, and then it was the left-hand side against Wrexham where they really just struggled so much. So that's going to be interesting to see as well. With Andre Vidigal for Stoke, they've got 2 really talented wide players. Lewis Baker in the number 10 role as well is a very good player. So Stoke have got some really, really good attacking options there, it must be said. And even defensively, some decent players at the back. Of course, they've got Ben Gibson, but he's not really been playing as of much since his arrival last season after Norwich didn't renew his contract. And Aaron Cresswell at left back, a player who Norwich were looking at. They opted for Jeffrey Schlupp, and given how those transfers have gone with the respective clubs and for the players, Norwich maybe will be a bit upset they didn't go with Cresswell instead of Schlupp, but you can't predict what's going to happen with players and clubs. Some really fit in and work, others don't. That's just the great unknown of when you sign a player. But even in goal, Victor Johansson, I personally have no idea how he's not playing for a club really, and no disrespect to Stoke City, but a club of higher stature within this division. I personally believe he is arguably, well, I say he really is. When you look at statistics, he is one of, if not the best goalkeeper in this division. He did superbly at Rotherham, even when they ended up getting relegated, hence why he went off to Stoke. And even at Stoke last season, I'm pretty sure he was right up there for the highest number of clean sheets. Of course, last season there was James Trafford, who just absolutely blitzed it. And then you had Mike Cooper at Sheffield United, who was doing really well too. And yeah, there were a lot of keepers who got a fair few more than him, but when you consider sort of the quality of Stoke's team compared to when you look at the start of the season and teams on paper, Stoke's team doesn't really compare, excuse me, with anyone else's, in all honesty. Again, I don't mean any disrespect to Stoke, because they're proving so many people like myself wrong with these points. They are second in the league and they've won 4 of 6 games. So massive, massive fair play to them. But on paper, you look at their team compared to Norwich's best team. Of course, Norwich won't have that at the weekend, but you know, Norwich have got a better team than them. You know, that is ultimately it. But no, it doesn't. It's their script of before the season is certainly being ripped up. But going into it with Norwich and injury issues, we've already mentioned, announced today, Diallo's out for 4 months. That's horrible. Absolutely horrible for Norwich. They're in a massive injury crisis. Ben Cresceni is out. Jeffrey Schlupp, Matthias Kvistgaard, just to name a few, really. There's players who may return, like Mahova that I mentioned earlier, maybe even Kenny McLean. But Norwich, you looked at their bench, really, it's on Saturday against Wrexham. It was weak. It was really, really weak, in all honesty. There's not many players who, when I looked at it, I thought, they'll change the game. If we need them, they'll change the game. So Norwich are going to go into the game with Stoke like that again, because they've now got less players to even pick from. So going to be intriguing to sort of see with all that. And then, of course, Liam Manning's words after the Wrexham game about he is only going to pick players that are fully committed, and there are some that he feels maybe are just sort of coasting along, that maybe shouldn't be in the team anymore, and he wants to put out the team that he knows will battle for him. It feels a bit like the Johannes Hoff-Torp saga at the end of the season gone by, where there was that big talk near the end where he was only going to pick players that he knew were going to stay there after the season, and players that he knew bought into his project and wanted to be at the club. It feels like Liam Manning, with only 6 games played in the champion. No, sorry, it's more than that. 8 games played. I'm thinking of the Premier League. My apologies. 8 games played in the Championship, and Liam Manning is already calling out his players. There's no punches being pulled. I like that personally, but you have to back it up. Basically, if you're a player in that position, you have to back it up on the pitch. And there's no better test than playing a really good team away from home where you haven't lost yet. There's a lot on the line for Norwich here, because there's a lot of fans calling for Manning's head. So for some people, Manning's job maybe is already on the line, which I personally think is a bit mental to say after 8 games. But hey ho, it's the position some people have. Anyone who watches football is entitled to an opinion. And then you also look at the away form. Of course, Norwich haven't lost away yet, so there's going to be a lot of sort of keen eyes looking at that. And then Stoke winning 4 from their. No, sorry, it is 6 games playing the Championship. I don't know why I had 8 in my head. It is 6. I should have trusted myself. But no, winning 4 from 6 is bloody impressive. Like that's no small feat. It's a fair play to Stoke for that regard. But it's when Norwich are going to get really tested, because Stoke are a team in form, and they're going to fancy themselves against anyone in the league, especially at home. So we'll see what happens. But maybe Norwich really fancy themselves away, and Liam Manning continues his unbeaten run away from home, and maybe a few fans will forget the Wrexham catastrophe if it goes well. But let's have a look at my predicted 11 for the game. So I'll flash it up for you now. So I've gone with Vladan Kovacevic in goal. I've gone with Kellum Fisher at left back over Cordoba, with Jack Stacey at right back, Harry Darling and Jakov Medic at centre half, Pella Matson and Mirko Topic at defensive midfield, with Jovan Makama, who scored against Wrexham at the weekend. I think he is worthy of a start, purely because Papa Diallo is out injured and Norwich don't really have anyone else. I've then put Mate Jurasek on the left. Ante Cianats I've gone with playing the 10 role, with Josh Sargent up front. So why have I made my changes really, with Fisher and Makama coming in and putting Cianats into the 10? Well, as I mentioned, Norwich don't have anything else. As I said at the start of the video, do Norwich go with a right back at left back rather than Cordoba, as it didn't really work and there was a lot of criticism? I think that's what they maybe have to do, because there is no one else they can put at left back who maybe, at least in the first team, who's going to do I say a competent job, but someone who, really is. Are they going to put who is someone who can put in a good stint and help Norwich in them wider defensive areas? I think really, if Jack Stacey plays on the left, I think we saw it under Torap. You kill Stacey and on a left hand side, and with him being predominantly right-footed, he's uncomfortable with the ball when it comes on the left side and onto his left foot. So I think Fisher, just for the sake of a bit of physicality and his desire to put in tackles and help his team out, I think that would work. And Makama on the right wing, simply because, as I mentioned, Diallo is out injured, and Makama showed a fair bit of promise against Wrexham from what I've heard. And of course, getting a goal off the bench, it's important. So maybe you can reward him with that, with his first start, with the injury issues, and then just put Jurasek out on the left wing. I believe Jurasek is naturally left-footed anyway, so it would work for him being a left-footer playing on the left. And then I've moved Cianats into the middle, simply because it seems that Liam Manning views him as a number 10, although he has played him out wide. Even when Norwich played the 5 at the back, they used Cianats, albeit on the right wing, but he was coming a bit more in field, playing as a right sort of sided number 10, if you can sort of catch my drift. So I think with what Liam Manning has been viewing him of, at least in pre-season, he played him a fair bit as the number 10 behind the striker. So maybe that could work for Cianats. Again, there's been a fair bit of criticism in his whole Norwich campaign. It was this very game, actually, last season away at Stoke, where he scored his first Norwich goal. So it wouldn't be too bad if he went and scored away from home again at the Britannia. But no, it's going to be tough. Regardless of what team Norwich and Stoke put out, Norwich have a lot of injuries, and there's a fair bit of pressure on them already. And as I already mentioned, Stoke have had a flying start. This is a tough test for Norwich, 1,000,000%. It's a tough game, even if they had their best 11 at their disposal. But who knows what can happen? You never know in football. 90 minutes can be a very long time, and anything can happen in a game. Usually, with match previews, we give score predictions. Personally, I hate giving them because I usually always get them wrong. But I just think with the injury issues and Stoke's flying start, I think Norwich are going to suffer their first away loss of the season. I do think they'll score. I'll go with the most common score in football with 2-1 to Stoke City. But it would have been different if Norwich had more players at their disposal, genuinely, because as I mentioned, they've got a better team than Stoke, at least in my opinion. People may disagree with that. You're more than welcome to. But no, it will be a tough one. It will be a very, very tough one. And we have to wait and see. Norwich's next game away at Stoke, another tough game, as I sound like a broken record, a tough game for them, but away from home, they haven't lost yet. So who knows what can happen. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Do make sure to check out all of the other ones on the channel if you haven't already. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, do so. It's completely free. You can watch all our videos and have a good laugh while you're doing it. Make sure you follow us on social media. You can see them all in the little yellow box to my right on where my camera is on the screen. But it's goodbye for now, and we'll see you in the next one.